Let's talk NFL head coaches. All of the head coaching vacancies have been filled. And so, as always, we got to talk about which one was the best. So, fellas, which head coaching hire was the best in this cycle?
We starting with me or we starting with Jerm? Like, which direction are we going?
Going from left to right. Left to right.
Oh, we will get a start because, like, when I'm done here, I'm like hopping off the show. This is why I'm here.
I didn't talk about this before the show.
This is why I'm here for. Like, I liked a lot of hires. And I know I'm gonna get flack for this. Like, I liked Raheem Morris in Atlanta. Like, I know people don't like defensive-minded head coaches, but I thought it was about time that he got a second shot. But I think the consensus, and maybe I'm biased here, but it is Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. And for so many reasons beyond him just being a former, Chargers quarterback, like, that fitness is almost like seamless. But the reality of the situation is I like Jim because for so many reasons, and let's start with the most important one, culture fit. When you talk about Los Angeles Chargers, there is, or for the last decade, there has been absolutely no culture. And if there's one thing that Jim Harbaugh has been over his time as a head coach, it's a culture setter. Like, you look back at Stanford's days, Stanford was not a national contender, not even in the conversation prior to Jim Harbaugh. Then he gets there, Angela gets there, and then you change the course of that, that school. Then he goes on to San Francisco. San Francisco goes on and, I think, 3 successive NFC title game appearances, including a Super Bowl, that he was hard-pressed in winning. He goes to Michigan, and then what we talk about Michigan for all those years, couldn't get it done in the Big Ten, could not get over Ohio State. What does Jim Harbaugh do? Not only does he win 3 successive games against Ohio State, but then he caps it off by winning the national championship and leaves on top. Like, every single place he goes, he is the culture setter. And if there is somebody lacking for culture, it is the Los Angeles Chargers. Then we talk about his, impact on quarterbacks as a former quarterback. So you see what he's gotten out of Colin Kaepernick. You've seen what he's gotten out of J.J. McCarthy. That's part of his stance. But I think the biggest thing that we don't talk about Jim Harbaugh, even though he's a former quarterback, is his impact on defenses. For 3 straight years, again, in San Francisco, you're talking about a top 3 scoring defense in those 3 title game runs I want to see. Then he goes to Michigan. I think last season, Michigan was the nation's top-ranked defense. And then in the other 2 years prior to that, you're talking about top 10, top 15 in the nation. This is what he's going to come. And why is it so important to the Chargers is that you spent $140-something odd million on that side of the ball, but consistently you're ranked, 25, 26, 27th in the league in defense. He is going to come, and the first thing that he's going to do is going to change the defensive culture within the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm sorry I've gone on and on because Jim Harbaugh is one of my favorite coaches, and that is why I came on this show to talk about Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers. So you can cut me off. I'm done for the rest. I don't care about the Super Bowl.
Man, Justin, I just got to say, for me, Jim Harbaugh is an honorable mention. And I know this is going to sound like a homer pick, but it's just facts. I got to go with Mike Macdonald to the Seattle Seahawks. And
I like that pick too.
I know you do. And with Mike Macdonald, I just got to say, it was the right move all along. I know there are a lot of Seahawks fans that wanted a Ben Johnson to kind of unlock the potential, of the Seahawks offense. There's a lot of playmakers: DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet. And so for me, look, to be the 3rd best offensive mind in your own division behind Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, to me, it's like, why go blow for them when I could come up with a counter move instead? And with the Mike Macdonald, Seattle goes from the oldest head coach in the league to now the youngest head coach in the league at 36 years old. And so with a guy like him, yes, he's a defensive mind. Justin, you brought up Raheem Morris and how he's a defensive mind. These aren't moves that are super favorable around the league, but I think that when they're young, when they're innovative, when they're with the times, and they've had success. I mean, that Michigan defense that won the Natty this year, a lot of that was heavily influenced and inspired by Mike Macdonald. They've stopped every offense this year. They held the Chiefs to 0 points in the second half. And if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers with those crucial back-breaking turnovers, I mean, who knows? Maybe we're talking Baltimore and San Francisco, in the Super Bowl here. And so I think with the Mike Macdonald, yes, there's going to be a learning curve, right? But then you bring in a guy like a Leslie Frazier, who's been a head coach in the National Football League. He's been the defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. He's had success. I mean, I remember those days when he had Adrian Peterson on the Minnesota Vikings. You know, he was a guy I grew up admiring. Still my favorite player to this day, all time. And so I know what he's capable of. He brings that much needed veteran experience. Now it's yet to be, we don't know what's going to happen offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, but I think Leslie Frazier at assistant head coach, that's a great start. You still have a John Schneider, one of the very best GMs in all of football. You still have a bunch of talent on both sides of the football. So I think with the Mike Macdonald, you bring in an innovative guy, a genius on the defensive side of the football. He's going to bring a new scheme, new everything. It's going to be a fresh start in Seattle. And man, I think in a couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up having an elite defense again.
So Mike Macdonald was because obviously the top three are Mike Macdonald in the Seahawks, Raheem in Atlanta, and obviously Jim Harbaugh. And so with Mike Macdonald, right, it's with the defense. Look what he's done with the Ravens the last 2 years. Roquan Smith, turning him into, obviously one of the best, at least an all-pro linebacker, if not one of the top three, right? And then Patrick Queen, who's a Pro Bowler this year. The bones of Jadeveon Clowney somehow got 9 sacks under Mike Macdonald. And even Kyle Van Noy, who, everybody thought he was done, became a contributor. Now, obviously the playoffs didn't go the way they wanted, but to doubt what they did all season that's attributed to Mike Macdonald. I have an answer to your offensive coordinator problem. Eric Bieniemy, simple fix. Bring him in there and let him fix what's going on. Because he's out in Washington.
I think he's on his way back to Kansas City, by the way. He was meeting the Chiefs prior to the Super Bowl, prior to the AFC title game. Yeah, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, then all right, never mind. But it's
I did want him in Seattle though.
Right. So, but that would be a perfect, he's available. It sucks because the best coaching job was Washington, but they wasted it on Dan Quinn. But really, guys, you guys are missing the point. You guys are thinking what is it, macro, right? You're looking to general. The Panthers are the best job. Think about it.
I like that.
You get a 5-year contract because that's mandatory, and you only have to work 1 because they'll fire you, and you'll get paid for 5 years. It's the best job in the NFL, baby. Who doesn't want to do that? Who doesn't want to get paid for 5 years of work and only have to work 1? Because David Tepper is the most incompetent owner in all of sports.
That's a great point, Jerm. The best coaching hire is for a job that's not open yet, in my opinion.
Buffalo?
And I'll talk about maybe. I'll go into a little bit later in the show, but one of these teams that's playing on Sunday will not have their head coach.
Whoa!
If they lose. Listen to me. It's not for certain. It's not for certain. I don't want to say it's a certainty, but I would not be surprised if the Niners lose this game on Sunday, if Kyle Shanahan is done in San Francisco. And this is why. Here's why. And I posted a clip about it the other day, and I'll just go into a little bit more. We're talking about a head coach who's won 64 games since he's been head coach since 2017. They've been to the NFC Championship game 4 times. They've won the division 3 times. The only year since 2019 they didn't make the NFC Championship game was the COVID year because more than half their team was either hurt or opted out because of COVID. They've been now in the Super Bowl now twice. They've lost championship games because of quarterback play. And you've got a guy in Brock Purdy who, while yes was Mr. Irrelevant, is an MVP candidate, whether people like it or not. Mm-hmm. If Kyle Shanahan and the Niners don't win this Sunday, are they ever going to win a Super Bowl under Kyle Shanahan? I don't think so. I think Kyle Shanahan's time in the 49ers is slowly approaching to the conversation that people were having about Josh Allen and the Bills. If they didn't beat the Chiefs, so obviously Sean McDermott's not the answer, right? We look at Baltimore. They thought it was Greg Roman. They blamed Greg Roman for everything, and guess what? Baltimore's still not in the championship. They're not going to fire Harbaugh. He's unfireable, right?
I fired Todd Monken though.
He's to be made, and so I don't think that Kyle Shanahan will be fired. I don't think necessarily from a standpoint of because of his success he should be fired, because who can you guarantee you can bring in and will have more success? But if Kyle Shanahan loses this game, or if the Niners lose this game, and the Niners decide, you know what, we've obviously reached our limit with you, let's go elsewhere. I do not think it is completely out of the realm of possibility that a Mike Vrabel or a Bill Belichick ends up in San Francisco.
Wow.
I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it is a coincidence that the second and third, however you want to rank them, the second and third best head coaching candidates after Jim Harbaugh in this cycle don't have a job. And the two teams that are playing in the big game could potentially not have their head coach next season. Andy Reid won't get fired.
No.
But Andy Reid could decide to retire after this year. He could. It's possible. And
why not go for a three-peat, though?
And I think they should, but he's getting up there. He might want to retire, right? You're talking about a guy in Kyle Shanahan. This team has obviously, if they lose this game, there's a legitimate argument that the Niners have peaked under Kyle Shanahan. Of another Super Bowl appearance, they're second in what will it be, 5 years? They've been in 4 of the last 5 NFC Championship games, right? They had 2 rough seasons to start. They've had winning seasons every year except for the COVID year. They don't have a championship to show for it. And we're talking about a team in the 49ers, a franchise in the 49ers that from 1982 to 1995 won 5 championships. And they had like their own little dynastic run. So I don't think it's 100% going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if Super Bowl Monday or by the end of next week, if they lose, Niners say we're done with Kyle Shanahan and they go pick up Bill Belichick and they go pick up Mike Vrabel.
I'm glad
they can't give up. They can't get Mike Vrabel. He's too big, white, and scary. He can't get him out.
I am so glad you brought up those names, right? Because I told you all I was here for the coaching carousel. I'm not here for the Super Bowl talk. Like I could care less.
Just like last year, you were here for Rihanna and not.
I was here for. I told you, this is what I'm here for. Bill Belichick not getting a job in this cycle is the smartest thing that all of these franchises could have possibly done. And I'm not here to, dig a grave on his coaching career. I'm not here to say that Bill Belichick is not one of the greatest, if not the greatest, head coach in his sport. What I am here to say is that it is time for Bill to hang it up. Because for so many reasons, right, the NFL has gone past Bill. Like the first thing is, right, you see all these hires. All these hires that we've seen are a lot of former players who are young. So like you see the Raheem Morris, you see maybe Jim Harbaugh is not so young. And you look, there's another player, Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
And you go on, and the kid there in Texas, the Houston Texans, sorry. DeMeco Ryans. Like you see all these hires, and the reason they're going in that direction is that not only are they former players, but they're young former players who can connect to today's players. These players no longer are about you shouting at them, screaming at them, talking about the Patriot way. Like we've seen what the Patriot way has done now. Like people are done with that Patriot way. That's not working in today's NFL with these players. And then on top of that, like Bill and his insistence on people like Josh McDaniels and like, oh my God, Matt Patricia. Like, these are no longer coaches, Joe Judge. But then worse yet, his insistence on also having control over the roster. Teams aren't doing that anymore. Teams are not giving head coaches that control. And then we saw how he badly messed up not only their drafts, but dealing with Matt Jones. Teams are not going to go down and forgive you for that. And I'm glad that they sat down and said, I don't care what your resume is. I've seen what you've done recently, Bill. You want control over rosters. You have mishandled Matt Jones. You've mishandled drafts. We are going to go elsewhere. And hiring Bill Belichick in today's NFL is a miss.
I think it's more than fair to say that.